Hi guys, this is Dr. Paula Varnado-Sullivan again, in case you haven't watched any of the other videos. I am a clinical psychologist. I'm also the department head of the Department of Psychology here at Southeastern. So one of the things I wanted to talk about was not just sort of why a psychology major, but also why Southeastern. And so a few years ago, I essentially was asked to do a presentation to a group of potential students. And when I was trying to figure out what in the world I could talk about in terms of why Southeastern, I decided the best thing I could do was essentially ask our experts. So for the information and the quotes that I'm about to show you, these are all quotes that came from the psychology students at that time. I developed a survey. Remember we talked about how psychologists like to do research. Well, I developed a survey where I asked students a lot of questions about what is it about Southeastern, what is it about the psychology major that they liked and they appreciated, and sort of why they wanted to be here. And so when I say I asked the experts, I asked current psychology students. And what I discovered was that there were some trends through both of those that a lot of students just tended to respond over and over and over again. So first up, when I asked our current undergraduate and graduate students, what did they like about Southeastern? What they responded was things like the class size. At Southeastern, our largest class, even for those classes that tend to be big lecture classes, like for example, my undergraduate abnormal psychology class was, I think, 800 people. There was another class I took that had 1,000 people in it. At Southeastern, even those what would typically be sort of, quote, large classes, never get above 75 to 85 students. Usually when it goes up to 85, it's because we've had an influx, and usually it's more things like introductory psychology or general psychology, where we might have to increase the number of students in the room a little bit just to make sure that everybody gets into those classes they need their first semester when they first start here. So the class size tends to be more smaller, more personal. Students talked about how it was easier to sort of connect to the other students and reach out and have a connection and talk to and meet with the faculty when they had questions or concerns. One of the big things that a lot of the surveys, whenever a survey is done about what is it about Southeastern, students talk about how it just feels like home. You're able to connect, make some friends, see people in classes. One of the other selling points is that we tend not to have classes on Fridays. There are a few labs that we have on Fridays, but the schedule is Monday through Thursday, which gives students a lot more flexibility. This is another quote for a student that's sort of the same thing. If you notice, you actually get to meet one-on-one, the classes are smaller, it's easier to make friends and make connections and build that support system while you're here. The campus. And that's a really pretty shot. All right, so first of all, it's a university. There are some places on campus, there are some buildings that are scheduled for renovation. I'm kind of hoping maybe before I retire, which is maybe going to happen at some point in my life. But the campus itself has a lot to offer for potential students. And that's our student union, by the way. So it's small enough that you don't have to run to class. You can get to classes fairly easily when you're going from class to class. Also, you tend to see the students, same students sort of over and over again, which makes it a little bit easier for you to make friends, make connections, and get support while you're here. I, on Tuesday, Thursdays last semester, taught 2 classes back to back. I had about 20 or 30 out of my 75 students who took both classes. Some of the students who had the first class came back for a class after my second class, and a lot of students just knew each other in even that bigger classroom. So it's a big campus or a big university, but it just feels small. Again, that idea of it feeling like home, but this one is one of my favorites. One of our instructors was an undergraduate here, went to our graduate program, is now an instructor here. She was actually my research assistant, was awesome. That's why we now have her as an instructor. And when I asked her what was one of her favorite things about Southeastern, her response was, you never go hungry. There's always somewhere to get food. There's always something happening where essentially there's like gumbo yaya, there's the strawberry festival. Oh wait, I messed that one up. But basically, there's always lots of food. Also, there's always things going on in the breezeway. There's crafts, raffles, always something happening at the union. So there's always something to do that allows you to get involved and get connected. The students. So in general, there was a lot of feedback about just everybody being friendly and helpful. So that's always a big thing. Again, part of success in college is getting a good support system and building connections and getting involved. In Southeastern, it's easy to do that. The faculty, that's some of our faculty, by the way. The professors, I like that the students responded that we genuinely care. For the most part, the smaller class sizes really do make it easier to ask questions, to meet with us during our office hours. We have to be in our office during office hours or be available to answer questions. I'll fully admit I have so many meetings. I'm not always just sort of sitting here and waiting, but I will always make an appointment with the student to talk to them about what's going on in class and talk to them about their concerns because, well, that's what we're here for. And we also have other opportunities outside of the class for students to sort of interact with us and work with us. I'm going to talk about those in a minute. So why psychology? So I asked, again, the majors at that time what they liked about being a psychology major, and it kind of came back to some of the same sorts of things, the faculty, the classes, and the opportunities. And I think that was my class again, so obviously I made them laugh. All right, so in general, you have a lot of the same people in the classes, and I mentioned that before, so it's easier to make those connections and to get to know other students. That doesn't always happen in a class of, like I said, like 800 to 1,000. Typically, one of the things that happens is that our students will pretty much take almost every psychology faculty member. It's actually quite surprising if I meet someone who never took one of my classes. It happens, but it's very rare. We have a fairly small faculty. We teach a good deal, so there's a good chance you're going to meet every faculty member that we have before you finish your career here. And I just really like this one because it said we were amazing. So they like the faculty. We're very passionate. I'll agree with that. We also have a good selection of faculty, meaning we've got folks who practice or who are in a lot of those different branches of psychology we talked about. So we have, for example, personality psychologists, 2 clinical psychologists. I work mostly with adults meaning 16 and over, whereas there's another faculty member here, Dr. LeBlanc, who works with children and adolescents. We have a developmental psychologist, a social psychologist, an IO psychologist, a school psychologist, developmental psychologist, an ABA specialist, and I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. So we have a pretty good selection of psychology faculty here to teach you a broad range of topics in psychology. In this part, I'm going to talk about in a minute. There's opportunities for the students to interact with the faculty outside of the classroom, and we're doing that through organizations and our volunteer research lab. So, the opportunities to get involved, one of those is, I actually started this back in 2013, and essentially it's the Research Incubator for Psychology Students, or RIPS, is a volunteer lab. Right now we have, I think, 7 faculty or 5 faculty. Oh, they're going to be mad at me for not remembering. But I think it's 7 faculty members who volunteer as part of the lab. And we basically have it as sort of a small group opportunity for students to get involved in research and get research experience working in that lab. We develop projects from student ideas. So for example, this semester, my group wanted to look at the use of artificial intelligence in therapeutic settings, or that idea of AI psychosis. So we're developing a project to study that and to look at student opinions about the use of artificial intelligence in a lot of different venues. But this is a volunteer lab that any student can join. You can actually join as soon as you come to campus, and it's a way to basically learn more about research as well as get to know a lot of the faculty members a little bit better. At the end of every academic year, we have a research showcase where we basically, it's like a poster presentation at a convention where we show students and faculty, we invite folks from other departments to come see the research we've conducted over the course of the year. So this is everything from graduate student thesis projects to faculty members projects to, I'll have that AI poster there when we have it on at the end of the beginning of May this semester. Psych-High is an honors organization that students can join, and it's a smaller group since it's an honors organization. But typically there were 30 to 40 members every semester when I was the advisor for a very long time. It's for psychology majors or minors, and it is for folks at the top 35% GPA in their class. They meet fairly regularly. They do a lot of service and activities here on campus, as well as it provides a lot of useful information. Like they sponsor a talk on careers in psychology. They sponsor a talk on how to get into grad school if you're interested in going to grad school in psychology. In addition, one of the new things we're starting is a psychology club, which will be open to any psychology major or minor who just want to be more active and be sort of ambassadors for psychology in the psychology department. If you want to connect, we're on social media. I do not run that because I know my limitations. But we have basically our website, we have an Instagram and a TikTok account with some very talented students who help us create content for that. So, in general, the psychology major here at Southeastern is one of those more hands-on programs, and the psychology major in general will open the door to a whole lot of career paths. You just have to sort of help design how you're going to get there and which classes you want to take that are going to best prepare you for that. Our students have gone on to be lawyers, medical doctors, physical therapists, work in business, education, child advocates. So you can do a lot with a psychology degree, despite what you read about on social media. Thank you. I think that's all. Yep, that's it.